If we turn to the east, we find that 6th and 5th century China is beset by a crisis as urgent, and in many ways significantly more urgent, than that of the Athenian Greeks. For in the 6th century, the Chinese state is ruled by the Zhou Dynasty, and this dynasty legitimizes its power on the idea of its moral leadership. In the 11th century, the Zhou overthrew the previous dynasty, the Shang, and justified doing so on the basis of the Shang's cruelty and religious impiety. They say that the supreme sky god, heaven, compelled them to do so. After overthrowing the Shang, the Zhou royal family integrated a complicated system of ancestor worship into their state. All regional rulers of the Zhou Empire were chosen because they were family and friends of the Zhou royal family. And the Zhou very much emphasize that the right to rule of every ruler lies in their lineal descendants back to the founder. This founder, the glorious King Wen, is regularly worshipped in ritual services and at every appointment of every government official. The Zhou are reminded in all these rituals to always continue the glorious and ethical ideals of their founders so that the state can be maintained. The Zhou have a name for these rituals that maintain the state. They call them Li. But by the 6th century, something has gone wrong. The regional rulers still claim a ceremonial allegiance to the royal family, but they increasingly operate independently and even defy the ruling family. They fight amongst each other, abuse the commoners, and usurp ritual and political prerogatives for themselves. The result is that society is increasingly violent and chaotic. It seems that the rituals no longer mean what they used to, and faith in the power of ritual to hold the state together is faltering. And with it, the very legitimacy of the Zhou monarchy and the chance for peace for the people that live along the Yellow River. It is in this context that Confucius's philosophy arises as an attempt to deal with this crisis. And he deals with it by reimagining the meaning and function of ritual, or Li itself. Before Confucius, Li referred first and foremost to religious ceremonies in the form of ancestor worship, and then had slowly extended to also refer to ceremonies and rules in a broader sense. But Confucius further extended and solidified these trends by understanding ritual as all those general practices and forms of behaving that bind people together and give them a common sense of human and communal identity. So for Confucius, not only is a religious ceremony, a coronation, proper official dress, all examples of ritual, but also forms of greeting, proper modes of addressing each other, proper relations between parents and children, and the prescribed activities and customs associated with holidays and festivals. Indeed, for Confucius, most of what goes by the name of culture, insofar as it serves a positive social purpose, is considered to be part of ritual. In extending the word ritual to all these cases, Confucius was at once secularizing the sacred, but also sacralizing the secular. The point is not just that the function of religious rituals is to hold the people together, but also that whatever ties people together in the appropriate way has something of the character of the sacred. This insight into the sacred nature of social bonds gives Confucius his primary clue as to the problems of Chinese society. The issue with this society is not that rituals are no longer effective, but that they are not practiced with the proper kind of sincerity. For Confucius argues that rituals do not work by magic, but rather by transforming our character and nature, engendering a sense of connectedness and empathy towards others, while also cultivating what is best within us. In order to do so, however, they must be practiced with the proper reverence and sincere devotion. The problems of 6th century Chinese society have emerged because people have either neglected ritual entirely or lost the reverence for ritual that makes rituals living and effective powers. This transformed understanding of the effectiveness of ritual, as arising from the attitudes with which the ritual is accomplished, gives its practice a new kind of meaning, and it is also the representation of a new type of spiritual and humane sensibility. And this new spiritual and humane sensibility will have a fateful and profound impact on nearly all future Chinese culture. There is much more to Confucianism, and even to the Confucian conception of ritual, than what I have outlined here. But the important point is how Confucius confronts a very specific type of crisis within his culture, one analogous to the crisis concerning Arete that Plato grappled with in 4th century Athens. The crisis the culture is experiencing is a crisis of meaning of one of its central symbols, the symbol embodied in the word li, or ritual. In former times, li was valued as that which lies at the foundation of the social order, but in the latter days of the Zhou Dynasty, it seems increasingly irrelevant, and its irrelevance is tied to the disasters of this period. Many who claim to uphold li appear to be violating the spirit of what it was based on, and this raises the question what li really is. Is it just fancy dress and ceremony, or is it something else? Confucius attempts to solve this crisis by conceptually reimagining the function of the term li in a way that is consistent with what was valuable in past usage, but which also adapts and transforms its meaning to meet the present crisis. On one hand, past usage emphasized li as a form of connection to spirits and ancestors, and a connection that lay at the foundation of the success of the present social order. Li was first and foremost religious ceremonies, but then also extended to the rules of conduct laid down by the Zhou royal family for the institution of the state. But in Confucius's hands, li is extended to every social pattern that serves to hold people together, and its effectiveness is not tied merely to correct external performance in a mechanical way, but to the attitude of reverence with which the ceremony is conducted. When so properly conducted, ritual is effective because it transforms our character, not merely because of any magical efficacy. We can draw a general moral from this that is very helpful for us as we start out on our philosophical journey. Philosophy emerges when the fundamental symbols and ideals of a culture undergo a crisis of meaning. Philosophy is an attempt to deal with this crisis by re-examining and reimagining these symbols. Once philosophy emerges, it becomes an ongoing critical examination and engagement with these symbols. Of course, this is not an official definition to which all philosophers would agree, and there are many difficulties with it that would need to be explored before it can be fully philosophically defended. But I speak from personal experience when I say that if you think of philosophy in this way, you have a pretty good way to organize your thoughts about the various activities and characters that play out in the drama of philosophical history. Giving you such an organizational tool is all I aspire to do in this video. It is my belief that this is one of the best ways, especially for the beginner, to get a grip on what philosophers are doing without having to make many large-scale philosophical commitments of their own. As you progress in your philosophical journey, you will encounter many different definitions of philosophy, and they will each be worthy of careful examination. But we will keep coming back to this one, again and again, as a useful framework for organizing what we learn. Thank you for watching.